After yesterday, learning that God's speech isn't like our speech, we want to understand a deeper understanding of what God's speech is. So yesterday, what we did is we compared God's speech to our thoughts. Just like a thought remains within us, God's speech still remains exactly within him. So let's go a little bit deeper. How exactly does it remain within him? Just as a thought? Even deeper. Like a pre-linguistical thought, before the osios of makshaba, before the letters of thought. So this is a level of consciousness that exists that before that thought even gets put into words within your mind, as just one with your 10 soul powers, as you're just one with that initial desire, that is how God's speech remains one with him. And really what we're ultimately learning here is there's no need to feel lonely. Right now that we understand how this world is completely nullified to God, we could think like, okay, so like, do I exist? Or maybe like, I really don't exist, and God's like, I'm just this nothing, God's really big out there somewhere, and the Alter Rebbe is saying, no, we exist within God. That's really the bombshell that the Alter Rebbe is dropping on us here over and over again. It's getting us into this consciousness that we exist within God. And so, when God spoke the world into existence, it's not that the world now exists separately from him, it remains like a thought, and not just like a thought within God, but it remains like a pre-linguistical thought. So Alter Rebbe breaks this down for us. Think of a treat you would like to have right now. As the initial desire is still forming within you, in its rawest form, before it even has a name for it, before you even say lemon meringue pie, before you even say cookies, before that even like dinger goes off and you put letters to it, this is an analogy for God's speech and how it exists completely within him. But the Alter Rebbe also gives another example of someone who wants to learn a piece of Torah, a certain topic of study. And so before they even put into words what that topic of study is, just that initial pure desire that's still just emerging from their 10 soul powers before it even gets dressed up in the lavush, in the soul garment of thought, as it just is one with its core. That is how the world exists within God. That is how God's speech, which created the world, still is within him. So it's even more one with him. The world is more one with God than a thought is one with us, right? It's as the world is one with God as a pre-linguistical thought is one with us, right? So we're learning that God's speech, it's not like our speech, where our speech becomes separate from us, but God's speech remains completely one within him, like a pre-linguistical thought. After God spoke the world into existence, it still exists completely within him. Like a raw desire exists within you before it is even formulated into the letters of thought. This is how God's unity is not displaced by the creation of the worlds. They exist within him completely bound with him. Meaning if there was God in the world, then theoretically it would displace God. But God's true infinity means it incorporates everything, meaning that nothing exists outside of God. How many infinities can there be? One. Because if something exists outside of that infinity, it isn't true infinity. We exist completely within God. From our perspective, we are created separate entities. In truth, we are within God, absorbed in absolute unity. So if our existence is not separate from God's, why does it appear separate, right? Why do I see myself as separate from God? Why do I feel myself to be separate from God? If really, in truth, we're learning that we are absorbed within God. We are completely within God. The Tzimtzum. Introducing. Coming soon, okay? We exist within the Tzimtzum. And the Tzimtzum can be translated as diminishments, contractions of God's endless light. So let's break this down. This creation's perspectives, okay, the way we view the world, came about by rung downgrading of God's light through the cause and effect chain of spiritual world, Seder Shalshalut, spiritual cosmos. Through numerous diverse diminishments of the light to the point where creations are able to receive their life force and creative energy from the diminished light, without their separate consciousness and identity being erased. Meaning really, without the Tzimtzum, God would be giving us life and we would completely feel it. And we would feel ourselves being created something from nothing. That's how angels feel. Angels are constantly feeling themselves be created in and out of existence every single moment. And therefore, they're just complete love and awe of God. They're just completely bound because they don't feel like a creation, even though they are. They feel themselves to be one with their source. God wanted to create us, a world with real free will where we can actually choose this relationship. And therefore, from Das Tachton, from our creation consciousness, because of these diminishments of God's endless light, we receive his endless light, but in such a diminished way, we don't feel ourselves to be receiving from our source. This means your consciousness is, in a sense, an illusion. Your separate mind can only exist because God is hidden in his presence. Remove that veil, and you will be reabsorbed in His oneness. Right? And in a moment's blink of an eye, that veil of consciousness where the light that is filling us and energizing us, that life-giving energy, were to be revealed for what it is, and those subsumum, those diminishments of God's light that conceal it, that make it seem like we're our own separate identities, those veils of reality were to be taken off, those veils of consciousness, and we would feel ourselves to be reabsorbed into the unity, because that's the reality. Thank you for taking the time to explore today's Tanya together.